Hello and welcome to Helicopter Training Videos. In this video we're going to talk about a really big question for those trying to get started, how to choose a flight school. This is a short clip from episode 1 of the Helicopter Training podcast, How to Become a Helicopter Pilot. You can find the full episode in the description or in our YouTube channel's podcast tab. So here's a really big question for a lot of people trying to get into learning to fly is how to choose a flight school. So there's many factors, and we'll go through some of the things to be considered, some of the questions to ask. Location. That's a key thing. Are you willing to relocate for flight training, or do you need to find something nearby? How far is the drive? Is it reasonable for you to be able to make that drive consistently through the year, or however long you're going to be doing your training? If you are moving to somewhere where the school has varied and challenging terrain and airspace? If you're flying for a little quiet area in the middle of nowhere, how are you going to get the experience of towered operations or busier airspace? Or maybe it's the other way around. You're in a very busy airspace and you've never moved to a non-towered airport. It'd be nice if you could get a bit of both. Another consideration is something called high DA, or high density altitude, versus sea level. High density altitude is operations at higher altitudes and in warmer conditions where the air is thinner and the aircraft struggles to perform. And that sounds bad, but it's actually good experience. That's something that employers further down the line are looking for. So, a person at sea level is going to have an easier way of getting things done, but not necessarily the better training. Someone who's up in the mountains and getting some high density altitude is kind of getting a better experience and becoming a better pilot through those experiences. Weather, another one. Are you going to move somewhere that is on the rainy side of the mountains? Is it going to be flying for only 6 to 9 months of the year reliably, and then you're going to spend a lot of time just looking out the window waiting for the right weather? So those are things to think about as well. Airframe, what's the aircraft type? We've already sort of talked a little bit about that. Same with the cost. We've covered that a little bit. That's a big, important piece, but it should definitely not be the most important piece. How big's the flight school? Do you want to work with a small mom and pop type flight school? Or would you want to work for a bigger flight school? If you get to a really big flight school, does it feel just like a pilot mill? So you need to work out how that affects your choice. Are you just another number, or do they know who you are? Are you going to be at a school that's busy enough to make sure that when you're an instructor, you have enough students, or that you may not even get hired on as an instructor because there's just not enough turnover, not enough revenue coming in with the students that they have? So all those are things to consider as well. What's their maintenance like? Who does their maintenance? Are they doing maintenance in-house? What's the level of the maintenance experience that they have? Some of the bigger schools, like the one I work for, we rebuild Robinson products. We've got a lot of experience. We've got a huge maintenance facility, which you can go in and see what's going on. You can see the systems of the aircraft, ask questions of the maintenance personnel. But that's a really important point is, what's the maintenance like for the school? Do they have a college connection? Do you want to get an aviation degree? Do you need to get an aviation degree to release funding? So that's another consideration. What's their safety record like? Look up the NTSB aviation database for the company and see what their accident history is like. Now, training's high risk. An accident happening does not automatically mean a terrible school. Many accidents happening, that might be something you want to be asking them about. Do they have an SMS or safety management system? This is a proactive way to deal with safety and risk and try to manage those things and learn from those things. Kind of connected to that is what's their internal training like? How much training do their instructors get to keep them safe and be as good as they can be? What is the leadership experience like? Are the people running the school, have they been out in the industry? Do they have the connections that you might want to leverage to get that next job after being an instructor? What's the culture like? So you really need to be there to see that one, and that ties into the whole going there for a discovery flight or a demo flight. But have a look around. Do the instructors and the students and the staff, do they all look happy? Do they look stressed? Do they look like the kind of people and the kind of place that you want to be a part of? Reputation. The helicopter industry is a very small industry, so speak to a couple of pilots who've been out in the industry for a while. Ask them about the school you're talking about. See if it's a good school and it's got a good reputation. You'll know that. This is really one of the most important pieces before you decide to go and pick your flight school that you're going to go with, is go visit the school and do what's called a discovery or a demo flight. That's where you go out there, you meet the staff, you meet the instructors, you get a tour of the facility, you get all your questions answered, all these questions that we sort of talked about safety record and and all that kind of stuff. And then you go and do a short flight. That may not be the instructor that you end up flying with if you choose the school, but you should get a pretty good idea of what does this look like? Do the aircraft look like they're in good condition? Does it feel like a good fit for you? Do they have time to answer your questions? Does it feel safe? Does it feel a place that you would want to be? And that's another part of it. As you're relocating, check out the town before or after you go fly. Is it somewhere you want to live? These are all really important things to be considering and asking before you commit to training. But even if you do commit to training, remember it's not locked in. You can move schools if it doesn't work out for you, but that's a discussion for another episode. So what are the next steps? Number one, like I said, is once you've kind of got a rough idea of the ones you're interested is some of the schools you're interested in, is go and visit those schools and try and get a discovery flight. I ended up doing, I think, 4 or 5 discovery flights in the US before I settled on the school I ended up at. And I'm not saying you have to do that many, but you really should at least do a couple. I have a webpage that goes into more detail about discovery or demo flights. And if you're looking for a flight school in the Pacific Northwest, it also includes a link to book a discovery flight at the school where I work at. You can check it out at helicoptertrainingvideos.com/demo. The link will also be in the episode notes. Some of the things about the getting a discovery flight is you don't have to have your medical. You don't need a student pilot certificate. There's no real prerequisites. You just need to come in comfortable clothes, closed-toe shoes, no flip-flops, and be ready to see what you think of it. If you've already been through this process, we'd love to hear from you. How was your experience of finding the right flight school? How many discovery flights did you take? What do you wish you did differently in the process? And then just any tips for anyone else just starting out. You can send us a message or even record some audio at helicoptertrainingpodcast.com/contact. We might even feature your response in a future episode. So this clip was just a small piece of what we covered in episode 1 of the Helicopter Train podcast, which was how to become a helicopter pilot. In the full episode, we break down questions like, what are the age, education, and medical requirements? What's the typical training path and how long does that take? How much does it all cost? And what are the financing options like VA benefits, scholarships, and loans? How do you pick the right helicopter to train in? And how you can get started with free home study resources, plus a bunch of other stuff. So you can find the full episode right here on this YouTube channel under the podcast tab, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Just search for Helicopter Training Podcast. And don't forget, you can start learning right now on the Helicopter Training Videos YouTube channel with video playlists covering things like ground school subjects, flight maneuvers, as well as following along with a student on every training flight from day 1 all the way through to check ride. If you haven't already, please click subscribe to get all the latest videos and help support this channel. And then finally, for more information, including articles and quizzes and resources, and how to support this volunteer project, check out our website, helicoptertrainingvideos.com. Thanks for watching. Fly safe.